I was Clara Morgan, 34 years old, and my life in the Dallas suburbs was a perfectly tiled floor. Every piece was in place. I was a head pediatric nurse at the sprawling Baylor Medical Center, had just secured a promotion that meant management track, and my relationship with Alex, a sharp architect, was solid. 2 years in, we were talking about buying a house in Highland Park. My timeline was immaculate, organized, and utterly predictable. I believed stability was the ultimate achievement, and I had built an iron fortress around mine. That fortress crumbled on a rainy Tuesday night in late October. I had just pulled a grueling 12-hour shift, smelling faintly of hospital sanitizer and cheap coffee. I kicked off my sensible work shoes near the entryway, poured myself a generous glass of Merlot, and settled onto my oversized couch with a lukewarm Thai takeout container. The sound of the rain hitting the window panes was the only thing I needed, a private moment of peace. Then the doorbell rang. It wasn't a friendly chime. It was a frantic, insistent bzzzt that sliced through the quiet. I almost ignored it. Who shows up at 9:30 p.m. on a Tuesday? Probably a delivery driver at the wrong luxury apartment complex. When it rang again, a series of short, desperate bursts, something in my chest tightened. It was the frantic rhythm of an emergency call button. The nurse in me couldn't ignore it. I peered through the peephole. Nothing. Just the dark, rain-streaked porch light reflecting off the wet concrete. I slowly unlatched the deadbolt, pulled the door open just a crack, and my world tilted violently. There was a car seat, a bulky, unfamiliar shell of plastic, sitting directly on my welcome mat. It was covered with a thin, damp blanket, shielding its occupant from the drizzle. My hands started shaking before they even touched the fabric. I pulled the blanket back, and underneath lay a tiny human being, maybe 3 months old, sleeping deeply. Rosy cheeks, a wisp of dark, almost black hair that looked exactly like my younger sister, Brooke. Tucked into the side harness of the car seat was a piece of folded paper, a note scrawled hastily in the familiar, chaotic handwriting I hadn't seen in years. I unfolded it, my vision blurring. Her name is Lily. I can't do this. Take care of her. I'm sorry. 7 words. 7 words that vaporized the mortgage pre-approvals, the management track, and the comfortable, predictable future I had mapped out. I stumbled backward, bringing the heavy car seat inside. I searched the street, the parking garage, the empty sidewalk, but Brooke was gone, completely vanished. I tried her cell phone. It went straight to a dead, impersonal voicemail box. I was holding a small, sleeping baby I knew nothing about, and suddenly I was entirely alone. My first call wasn't the police. It was my parents, Richard and Carol Parker. They lived barely 20 minutes away in their neat, quiet retirement community. I thought naively they would rush over. They were the grandparents, after all. Mom, it's Clara. Brooke left Lily on my doorstep. She's gone. What do I do? I choked out, tears of panic finally breaking through the shock. The silence on the line was cold enough to frost my windows. We told her not to have that baby, Clara. My mother, Carol, said, her voice devoid of warmth, sounding like she was discussing a broken appliance. She made her choice, and now she's running from it. Typical Brooke. But what do I do? I don't have formula, Mom. I can't just keep a baby. My father took the phone, his voice firm, final, like a judge slamming a gavel. She is your burden now, Clara. We are done cleaning up after Brooke. We are too old for this. She left her with you, not us. We never asked to be grandparents. They hung up, just like that. The people whose home I grew up in, whose values I thought I inherited, had drawn a definitive line, abandoning not just their reckless daughter, but their granddaughter and me in one brutal phone call. Lily chose that moment to wake up, her face scrunching into a loud, desperate wail that echoed my own mounting terror. I had no idea how to stop it. I was head nurse of the pediatric floor, yet utterly paralyzed by one tiny, hungry human. I called Alex, my stable, reliable partner. He needed to be the practical voice of reason. I asked him to stop at the 24-hour pharmacy for formula and diapers. A baby? Your sister just dumped her kid on you? That's insane, Clara, he said, his voice rising, laced with resentment, not concern. You need to call social services. This isn't our problem. This is exactly the kind of drama Brooke always creates. Don't get pulled into it. I hung up on him before he could finish. His reaction was the second deeper betrayal. My perfectly tiled life was shattering into sharp, irreparable pieces. I was an island holding a car seat entirely on my own. I drove to the nearest grocery store, still in my scrubs, Googling Formula 3-month-old. In the parking lot, my hand shaking so violently I could barely type. A kind, elderly woman working the night shift, sensing my complete breakdown, took me under her wing, helping me fill a cart with essentials. Her eyes, full of genuine, quiet compassion, were the first kindness I had seen all night. Back at home, as the hours blurred into crying, burping, and terrified diaper changes, I made a makeshift crib from a large, padded laundry basket and placed it beside my couch. I lay awake, staring at this tiny, perfect face, unaware of the chaos she had caused. As I fed her in the pre-dawn quiet, watching her tiny mouth latch onto the bottle, a fierce, protective instinct ignited in my core, burning away the fear and the anger at my sister. I whispered to the tiny life in my arms, a promise I would keep for the next decade, a vow that became the foundation of everything we were. I don't know what happened with your mom, sweet girl, but I am here now. You are safe. I will figure this out. That moment marked the death of Natalie, the ambitious nurse, and the terrifying, immediate birth of Clara, the mother. My old life, my old plans, they were gone. But in their place, I held something infinitely more important, something warm and breathing that desperately needed my stability. The custody battle that was coming, the one that would try to tear us apart 10 years later, had just found its immovable object. The 2 weeks of emergency family leave from the hospital felt less like a break and more like a high-stakes, 24/7 training drill for a job I never applied for. My apartment, once minimalist and neat, quickly transformed into a battlefield of baby gear, formula cans, and the perpetual, slightly sour smell of spit up. I spent the first few days consumed by fury at Brooke. I went to the police, but they shrugged. No crime here, ma'am. Mother left her child with family. She's not missing. She chose to leave. Brooke's 7 words had granted her legal immunity from consequence. I hired a family lawyer immediately, a brisk, expensive consultation that warned me I'd be dealing with guardianship, not adoption, a legal purgatory that would keep me vulnerable to Brooke's potential return. The process was grueling. Fingerprints, home inspections, background checks, all to prove I was fit to care for my own niece. But as the initial chaos subsided, the anger began to burn down into something warm and constant. Protective love. Lily was a magnificent distraction from the raw pain of being abandoned by my entire family unit. Every time I looked into her wide, trusting blue eyes, my heart softened. She was an innocent bystander in Brooke's dramatic flight, a pure soul who deserved stability. Alex's final, resentful departure hit hard, but it confirmed the cold, transactional nature of his affection. He saw my new life as drama, a deviation from our mutual plan for wealth and travel. Losing him hurt, but seeing his true character, the suggestion that I should have put Lily into the foster system, validated my decision to choose Lily over him. I realized I didn't want a partner whose love had conditions. Meanwhile, my parents continued their pattern of calculated distance. They would call, not to ask about Lily, but to ask if I'd heard from Brooke. Their concern was centered entirely on their missing daughter, not their abandoned granddaughter. "Are you still doing this, Clara?" my mother asked during one brief, tense call a month later. "It's too much for you. She should be in a proper place." "She is in a proper place, Mom. She's with family," I replied, gripping the phone until my knuckles were white. "Blood is blood," my father interjected with his usual finality. "But you can't run your life into the ground for her mistakes." They were talking about Lily as if she were a financial asset that had depreciated in value. They were so focused on the burden of responsibility that they entirely missed the gift of Lily's presence. I learned then that some people cling to the idea of blood ties without ever embracing the true cost of commitment. I had to make massive, immediate changes. My sleek, one-bedroom apartment, perfect for a career woman, was totally inadequate for a growing infant. I found a 2-bedroom unit 20 minutes away, stretching my budget until it screamed. The moving costs, the crib, the car seat, it all decimated the savings I had intended for a down payment on the house with Alex. My career took a necessary detour. I reduced my hospital hours, stepping off the management ladder entirely. My supervisor, a kind older woman named Mrs. Peterson, was understanding but clear. "Clara, your career will slow down. You're trading prestige for stability, and that's okay. But you need a reliable childcare solution." I found Mrs. Gloria Santiago, a woman in her late 60s who ran a small, licensed daycare from her home. Gloria, with her warm, experienced hands and gentle Spanish lullabies, became my rock. She was the first person outside the hospital who showed me genuine, unconditional maternal support. When Lily had colic, it was Gloria I called, not my mother. The legal fight for temporary guardianship was a constant, draining shadow. Lawyers, paperwork, and court-appointed monitors. Every document felt like a judgment on my parenting, my finances, my life choices. I had to justify my love in triplicate, but as the months passed, a profound shift occurred. Lily wasn't a burden anymore. She was the center of my gravitational pull. She rolled over. She sat up. She recognized my face and rewarded me with the most brilliant, gummy smiles that could erase a week's worth of stress. One evening, about 6 months in, after battling through paperwork until midnight, I found myself weeping, not from exhaustion, but from pure, overwhelming love. I realized I wasn't waiting for Brooke to come back and take her. I was terrified that she would. I started a memory box, filling it with Lily's tiny hospital band, her first shoes, and a crumpled photocopy of Brooke's 7-word note. I kept a journal for Lily, too, documenting every milestone, every funny sound, every small triumph, the record of a childhood I was building from scratch, a childhood I was fighting for sight unseen. We celebrated Lily's first birthday in our new, slightly cluttered, but fiercely loved apartment. It wasn't a lavish party. Mrs. Santiago brought a beautiful, slightly lopsided cake. A few kind co-workers showed up with balloons. My parents declined, citing a prior commitment, another calculated absence. As I tucked Lily into her proper crib that night, watching the rise and fall of her chest, I realized I had not only survived the disaster but thrived in it. My life was completely different, yes, but it was richer, defined not by climbing a corporate ladder, but by the weight of a sleeping child in my arms. The ambitious, independent Clara had died, but the mother who replaced her was stronger, purer, and capable of a depth of love she never knew existed. The stage was set not just for a life, but for the war that was coming a decade later. A war where love, not legality, would be the only truth. 5 years passed in a comfortable, if relentless, rhythm. The frantic chaos of those first months in Dallas had evolved into the choreographed dance of a single-parent household. Lily was now 5, starting kindergarten, a milestone that hit me with a shocking wave of nostalgia. It felt like only yesterday I was Googling formula types in a gas station parking lot. Our apartment, no longer sleek and minimalist, was a vibrant explosion of color. Lily's finger-painted masterpieces covered the refrigerator. The walls were adorned with growth charts, and the sofa was permanently imprinted with the shape of our Friday night pillow fort. It was messy, it was loud, and it was undeniably home. I was now the full-time school nurse at an elementary school, a different one than Lily's, maintaining the professional boundary I needed. The job came with the sacred gift of family-friendly hours, holidays off, and summers with my daughter. I had traded the rush of the emergency department for the predictable, gentle pace of treating scraped knees and handing out ice packs, and I had never been happier. My career ambition had downshifted completely, replaced by the ambition to be present. Lily was a marvel. She had Brooks' sharp intelligence, but my quiet resilience. She was a natural artist, creating elaborate worlds with her building blocks and constantly inventing stories. Our mornings were defined by her wake-up ritual, climbing into my bed with her stuffed rabbit, Hoppy, and a stream of rapid-fire questions. Nana, is today pancake day? Can we wear the dinosaur shirt? Did you remember my star shoes? I was Nana. I had tried, briefly, to teach her to call me Mom, but she had coined Nana herself as a baby, a blend of Natalie and Mama, perhaps, and it had stuck. It became our term of endearment, our secret code, a word that represented our chosen relationship. As she grew older, the questions about her origins began, naturally. I was always honest, but age-appropriate. "Where is my tummy mommy?" she asked once while drawing a complex family picture. "Your tummy mommy is my sister, sweetie, your Aunt Brooke. She was very sick when you were little, and she wasn't ready to be a mommy, but she knew exactly where to bring you. She made sure you came to me, because she knew I would love you the most. Will she ever come back? I don't know, Lily, but what I do know is that no matter what, you and I are a family. We are forever." To reinforce this, I worked with her preschool counselor to create a personalized picture book. It showed families of all shapes. Kids with 2 dads, kids with grandparents, and finally a picture of Lily and me. The caption read, "Some families are made from blood, and some are made from heart. Lily and Nana are a heart family, and heart families are the strongest of all." That phrase became our mantra, our unbreakable shield. My parents remained spectators, not participants. They visited 3 or 4 times a year, the visits laced with their usual low-grade tension and quiet critique. My mother, Carol, would look around our apartment with thinly veiled disapproval. "You look exhausted, Clara, and this space is so cluttered." She'd bring Lily gifts that were always slightly off. A princess tutu for a child who only wore dinosaur t-shirts, demonstrating how little she actually paid attention to her own granddaughter. "All the nice girls are taking ballet now, Clara. You should sign her up." My father, Richard, stood in the doorway, arms crossed, stiff and emotionally distant. He never played with Lily. He never read her a book. His only question, repeated every time, was always the same, tight with resentment. "Have you heard anything about Brooke? Anything at all?" His anger at Brooke's failure had curdled into a general coldness that encompassed me and, tragically, Lily. Lily, perceptive and sensitive, would grow quiet during their visits, her natural exuberance dimmed by their lack of warmth. They were blood, but they felt like strangers. My personal life was a non-starter. Dating as a single mother in my unique situation felt impossible. The few men who showed promise inevitably retreated when the full picture was revealed. I am raising my sister's abandoned child, and I am her only parent. I chose peace and stability over chasing a conditional relationship. Lily's emotional security was paramount. Financial stability was still a tightrope walk. To counter my reduced income and the constant legal fees for maintaining guardianship, I took on a second job doing telehealth nursing consultations 2 evenings a week after Lily was asleep. It meant less sleep and rigorous budgeting, but it funded a small college savings account, the ultimate security blanket. After years of discipline, when Lily turned 6, we took our first real vacation, a trip to Disney World in Florida. Watching her face light up as she met Cinderella and screamed with joy on the rides made every single sacrifice worthwhile. We returned with a photo album full of memories, proof that our chosen family could create magic even without the big house or the 2-parent income that society insisted was necessary. Looking at that photo album now for more years melted away. Lily was 9, thriving, her resilience a testament to the love that surrounded her. My life was completely unrecognizable from the predictable timeline I had planned, and yet I knew I wouldn't trade a single moment. I had found my purpose in her heartbeat, but in a small, dusty box under my bed, I still kept the letters I had written to Brooke over the years, unsent, documenting Lily's milestones just in case. They were a decade of unspoken dialogue, of a mother trying to connect a child to her history. I wondered, sometimes, if Brooke ever looked back. That question was about to be answered, 10 years too late, and in the most devastating way imaginable. The perfect calm of our life was about to be shattered by the sound of a phone ringing. For more years slipped by, quiet and comfortable, woven into a pattern of school events, art shows, and cozy nights in our 2-bedroom apartment. Lily was now 9, in the 4th grade, an inquisitive, resilient, and deeply loved child. She had my quiet strength, but Brooke's artistic fire. We were a finely tuned 2-person team. Then, one ordinary Tuesday evening, the phone rang. I was sitting at the kitchen table helping Lily with a complicated science project about the solar system, the kind of project that required 3 times the parental involvement than advertised. An unknown number flashed on my screen, a 713 area code, Houston, an hour away. I almost ignored it, assuming it was a telemarketer trying to sell me solar panels. Something, a cold prickle of intuition, made me answer. "Hello." "Clara, it's me." The voice was hesitant, familiar, yet strangely refined, like a polished stone. It had been a decade since I'd heard it. "It's Brooke." My hand tightened around the phone. I stood up, pushing back my chair, motioning frantically for Lily to stay quiet. I walked quickly into the privacy of my bedroom, closing the door behind me. "Brooke? Where are you? Are you okay?" My mind was racing between anger, confusion, and a strange, cautious relief that she was alive. "I'm fine, Clara. I'm actually in town. I was hoping we could meet to talk. Just us." She sounded different, not the frantic, defeated mess I remembered, but steady, mature. We arranged to meet at a neutral spot, a cafe near the Galleria, the next day while Lily was at school. I told Lily I had a required doctor's appointment, a small, necessary lie to protect her from the unknown. I spent the entire night alternating between a furious rage that had been simmering for 10 years and a strange, fragile sense of hope. Brooke was back. Was this the closure I needed? Was this the beginning of a safe, healthy connection for Lily? The woman who walked into the bustling cafe the next afternoon was almost unrecognizable. Brooke, now 32, was stunning. Her hair was styled in a sophisticated, tailored bob, her outfit a chic, tailored blazer, and she carried an expensive handbag that screamed financial success. She looked healthy, put together, and impossibly distant from the overwhelmed young addict who had dumped her infant on my mat. "You look good, Clara," she said, taking a seat opposite me, though her eyes were twitching with nervousness, betraying her composed appearance. "Really good." "You too, Brooke. You seem well." I studied her face, searching for the traces of the messy, chaotic sister I used to know. "I am," she said, twisting her fingers on the marble tabletop. "I've been sober for 7 years. I completed rehab, got my degree in graphic design, and I'm married now to a wonderful man named Thomas. He works in asset management." She then proceeded to lay out a careful, well-rehearsed narrative of recovery and redemption. After leaving Lily, she had spiraled, hitting true rock bottom on the streets of San Diego before checking herself into a high-end rehabilitation center. She met Thomas there, a wealthy donor and volunteer counselor, and they married after she maintained sobriety. They had no children of their own. "I wasn't fit to be a mother then, Clara," she admitted, her voice dropping, seemingly sincere. "I was using heavily during the pregnancy. I was terrified Lily would have health problems. The night I brought her to you, I was using for days. I knew I was going to hurt her if I kept her. Leaving her with you was the only good decision I made. I listened, holding back a decade of pain. I was so angry," I said finally, my voice low and steady. 10 years. No call, no email, nothing. Do you know what I sacrificed? What our parents did? What Alex did?" She didn't flinch. "I know. I saw it all. I monitored your social media anonymously for the first few years, just to make sure she was okay. When I got sober, I knew I had to build a rock-solid foundation first. Not for me, but for the future. I didn't want to fail her again." I pulled out my phone and showed her the photos she had missed. Lily's first steps, kindergarten graduation, the goofy Halloween costumes, the Disney trip. Brooke wept softly as she scrolled, tears blurring the images of a life she voluntarily abandoned. "She's beautiful, Clara. So beautiful. And clearly happy. You've done an amazing job." My emotions were chaotic. The old, burning anger mixed with a new, cautious hope. Could this be real? Could Lily have a healthy relationship with her tummy mommy after all this time? Could Brooke finally become the stable sister I always needed her to be? "I would like to meet her," Brooke said, her voice catching. If you think that would ever be okay." After careful consideration and consultation with Lily's school counselor, I agreed. The first meeting was arranged at the Dallas Children's Museum, a neutral, stimulating location. I told Lily the truth gently. Aunt Brooke was very sick, but she's better now, and she wants to be part of our extended family. The meeting was tense. Lily, usually so confident, clung to my hand. "Hello, Lily," Brooke said softly, approaching with a nervous smile. "Nana says you're her sister," Lily replied, half hiding behind my legs. "That's right. And I'm also your birth mother. You grew in my tummy before you were born." Lily nodded solemnly. But Nana is my real mom, because she takes care of me and loves me and helps me with homework and makes me soup when I'm sick. Brooke's eyes filled with fresh tears, but she smiled bravely. That is absolutely right, sweetie. You are very lucky to have such a wonderful mom. The cautious, measured re-entry into our lives began. Brooke was respectful of boundaries, deferring to my parenting choices and never pushing. She seemed genuinely happy to be the cool aunt figure. I dared to believe the redemption story. But redemption, as I was about to discover, often comes with an impossibly high price tag, especially when it's been purchased with someone else's stability. Brooke was not just back. She was returning with a calculated agenda, and the gentle introduction was merely the first act of a masterfully deceptive play. The true shock was waiting for me at the dinner table. Over the next 6 months, Brooke maintained her position as the cautious, non-threatening aunt. She showed up reliably for supervised visits, brought thoughtful gifts that demonstrated she was listening to Lily's interests, a complex astronomy set, new art supplies, and always ended the visits on time. She was performing the role of the redeemed relative perfectly. The only person I hadn't met was her husband, Thomas. I insisted on meeting him before allowing any unsupervised contact. I invited them both over for dinner at our small apartment, needing to assess the man who represented Brooke's new, stable life. Thomas arrived exactly on time, impeccably dressed, and radiating the controlled confidence of a high-powered asset manager. He was charming, engaging, and complimented my apartment and my cooking. He asked Lily about her science project with genuine interest and spoke to me with respectful admiration for the life I had built. Yet, something felt profoundly unsettling about him. His responses were too perfect, his smiles too practiced. And I caught him multiple times, watching Brooke while she spoke, a tight, monitoring gaze, as if he were waiting for her to miss a cue in a play they'd rehearsed. The atmosphere was pleasant until we reached dessert, my famous key lime pie. Thomas set down his fork, wiped his mouth with his napkin, and that perfect, practiced smile tightened into something professional and chilling. "We've been thinking, Clara," Brooke began, glancing at Thomas for encouragement, her voice suddenly strained. "Now that we're settled and financially stable, I would like to be Lily's mother again. Legally, I mean." My fork clattered onto my pie plate, the sound startlingly loud in the sudden silence. I stared at them both. "What exactly are you saying, Brooke?" "We think it would be best for Lily to live with us," Thomas interjected smoothly, taking the lead immediately. "Of course. You would have generous visitation. You've done an amazing job raising her, Clara, truly remarkable. But a child belongs with her biological mother when possible. We have a 4-bedroom house, a yard, and we're in the top-rated school district in Plano. Lily deserves that advantage." I could barely breathe. The air felt thin and cold. Lily was in the living room, showing Thomas her latest art project, unaware of the conversation that was tearing her world apart. "I am her mother," I said, my voice low and shaking. "I have been her mother for 10 years while you were nowhere to be found. I changed her diapers, took her to the ER when she had the flu, and I sat up with her every single night for a decade." "Biologically, I am her mother," Brooke countered, her tone hardening, backed by Thomas's silent, intimidating presence. "And I am in a much better position to provide for her now. You're in a tiny apartment, working 2 jobs. Thomas makes 6 figures. She could have her own room, a college fund, vacations, everything children should have." "She already has everything she needs," I snapped, struggling to keep my voice from alerting Lily. Including stability and security with the only parent she has ever known. You can't put a price on that. The conversation ended uneasily, thick with unspoken threats. After they left, I sat in the silent apartment, stunned by the sheer audacious cruelty of their demand. I had believed Brooke wanted reconciliation. She wanted replacement. She hadn't returned to be an aunt. She had returned to reclaim an asset, one that had finally matured enough to be valuable. The next betrayal followed quickly, timed perfectly like a coordinated attack. My parents, Richard and Carol, called a rarity, requesting a Sunday dinner at their home, including Lily. It felt like a trap, and it was. When Lily and I arrived, Brooke and Thomas were already there, settled comfortably in the living room, looking like the prodigal daughter and her conquering hero. My mother fussed over Brooke as if she were royalty, a contrast to the icy neglect she had shown me for the last decade. "Your sister has told us everything," my father announced after a deeply uncomfortable meal, about her recovery, her marriage, her desire to be a proper mother to Lily. "She's turned her life around, Clara," Carol added, beaming at Brooke. "We are so proud of her. You've been in contact with her for how long?" I asked, the pieces of the puzzle clicking into place with sickening clarity. My parents exchanged guilty glances. "We reconnected about 3 years ago," Richard admitted, avoiding my eyes, "when she completed her program." 3 years. I repeated, numb with disbelief. "You have known where she was for 3 years and never told me? Never told me her child was here, thriving, waiting for a letter or a call. And you continued coming here, criticizing my life, while you knew she was safe and well." "She asked us not to," Carol said defensively. "She wanted to get herself together first. And now that she has, it makes sense for Lily to be with her real mother. Amanda and Thomas can provide a traditional family environment. You've done your part, Clara, but it's time to do what's best for Lily." "Blood is blood," my mother concluded, repeating the phrase that had defined their cold, transactional family philosophy. The betrayal was total. It wasn't just Brooke, it was my entire family of origin, conspiring for years, lying, and now attempting to steal the child I had bled and fought for. I stood up abruptly. "We're leaving." "But we haven't had dessert." Lily protested, confused by the sudden tension. "We'll get ice cream on the way home," I promised, pulling her coat on. As we drove away from the house that had once been home, Lily, unusually quiet, stared out the window at the passing Houston streetlights. "Nana!" she finally whispered, her voice tiny and terrified. "Grandma said I might go live with Aunt Brooke. Is that true?" My heart broke. I pulled the car over, unbuckled my seatbelt, and turned to face her fully. "Listen to me, Lily. You and I are a family. We have been since the day you came to me. Nothing is going to change that. I promise you." "Cross your heart?" she asked, her bottom lip trembling. "Cross my heart," I said firmly, making the gesture we used for the most sacred promises. "No one is going to take you away from me." That night, holding her close, soothing a nightmare where she cried out, "No, don't take me!" A cold, hard determination settled in my chest. Brooke and Thomas had resources, but I had 10 years of unwavering, unconditional love and the sacred promise I had whispered over a laundry basket crib. I would fight with every fiber of my being. The battle lines were drawn. The certified letter arrived 3 weeks later. Its formal, official language disguising the emotional bomb it contained. Brooke was petitioning the Dallas County Family Court for restoration of her parental rights and full custody of Lily. The hearing was set for 30 days later. Every legal term felt like a physical blow. Biological parent, termination of guardianship, best interests of the minor child, home study, psychological evaluation. The words swam before my eyes as I realized that the stable, loving life we had built together could be dismantled by a judge who knew nothing about our bond, our history, or our love. I emptied my meager savings account and took out a loan to pay the retainer for Aisha Khan, an attorney specializing in complex family law, highly recommended by a colleague. Her office was surprisingly warm, filled with children's toys and abstract art, suggesting she understood the human stakes of her work. Aisha was brutally honest. "I won't sugarcoat this, Clara. Biological parents have strong, fundamental rights in Texas law, even ones who have been absent. However, 10 years is practically Lily's entire life. Judges are extremely reluctant to disrupt a child's stable environment without compelling reasons. We fight this by documenting the reality of your motherhood. Our strategy was meticulous. Document, document, document. I gathered a mountain of evidence. School records showing my consistent attendance at every parent-teacher conference, every play, every field day. Medical records detailing every checkup, every flu shot, every late-night trip to the ER. Letters from Lily's teachers, Mrs. Santiago, and my friends attesting to the secure, loving home we had created. But then came the initial discovery packet from Brooke's high-powered attorney. It contained the affidavits from my parents, Richard and Carol Parker, and their contents were shocking in their malicious dishonesty. According to my mother's sworn statement, I had manipulated the temporary situation to alienate Lily from her biological mother and extended family. My father claimed I had refused numerous requests for family visitation and deliberately kept Lily separate from family traditions and gatherings. Both portrayed Brooke as a young woman who had made a single mistake and was now fighting for a well-deserved second chance, positioning me as the villain who had stolen her child. "This is absolutely false, Aisha," I whispered, my hand shaking as I held the papers. They visited only when it suited them, showed minimal interest in Lily, and were critical of me at every turn. They knew where Brooke was for 3 years and never told me, and now they are perjuring themselves to paint me as a monster. Aisha nodded, her expression grim. Custody battles, especially those involving grandparents, often bring out the worst in people, Clara. They're choosing sides. The good news is we can refute this with data. Do you have any texts, emails, or records of your interactions with them over the years? I did. Out of a habit born from dealing with their unpredictable criticism, I had saved emails and texts, canceled holiday visits, thinly veiled critical remarks, and even a few instances where I begged them for help in the early days. I had never imagined they would become evidence in a court of law. The stress began to visibly affect Lily. She started having trouble sleeping, becoming clingy before school, and her usually excellent grades started to slip. Her teacher called to report that Lily had burst into tears in class when a fellow student mentioned a fight between his divorced parents. I immediately arranged for her to see a child psychologist specializing in family transitions, Dr. Reyes, hoping to give Lily tools to process her fears while shielding her from the legal battle. The preliminary report from Dr. Reyes confirmed my worst fears. Lily exhibits significant anxiety about potential separation from her primary caregiver, Clara. She associates her birth mother and that side of the family with insecurity and fear of abandonment. Forcing a custody change at this point could result in significant emotional trauma, anxiety, and depression. The timing of Brooke's return, exactly 10 years after leaving, nagged at me. It felt too calculated. I hired the private investigator who had helped me track Brooke years ago, now asking him to look into Brooke and Thomas's claims of their stable, perfect life. The timing feels off, Frank, I told him. 10 years. Why now? Why not at 8 or 7? 2 days later, Frank called back, his voice urgent. Clara, we need to meet. I've found something big. Something that changes the entire nature of this case. The legal fight had now officially escalated from a battle for love to a war against calculated greed. The next chapter of the custody battle was about to be defined by a shocking, unexpected twist that would expose the dark motive behind Brooke's perfect redemption story. Frank, the private investigator, arrived at my apartment just after 8 p.m., carrying a thick folder. Lily was safely engrossed in a Disney movie in her room, giving us a window of privacy. He spread the documents, copies of public records, social media inquiries, and financial searches, across my small kitchen table. Brooke and Thomas aren't just looking for reconciliation, Clara, Frank stated, his face grim. They are executing a financial retrieval strategy. They've been systematically searching for Lily's biological father, the man Brooke refused to name a decade ago. He pointed to a timeline of digital activity, targeted database searches, archived social media inquiries, and contact attempts. It appears they located him approximately 6 months ago, right before Brooke suddenly contacted you. My blood ran cold. Why? Why would they look for him after all this time? Brooke never wanted anything to do with him. Frank slid another document toward me, a probate record from upstate New York. Because of this, the man they identified, Jason Reynolds, inherited a significant sum from his grandfather last year. We're talking multiple millions, Clara. The puzzle pieces clicked into place with sickening, brutal clarity. Brooke's sudden interest in motherhood after 10 years of abandonment, the perfectly timed redemption story, the high-powered attorney, the expensive house, Thomas's smooth financial speak argument about providing advantages. It was all a calculated performance. If Brooke regains custody of Lily, Frank explained, his voice low, and they legally establish paternity with Jason Reynolds, she could petition the court for substantial, retroactive child support for the last decade, plus secure future financial benefits for Lily that they, as her legal guardians, would control. It's not about Lily. It's about leveraging Lily's biological relationship to a newly wealthy man. Rage, pure and volcanic, flooded me. They weren't fighting for Lily's love. They were fighting for Lily's collateral. My parents, Richard and Carol, were complicit, choosing the potential wealth of the real mother over the proven stability I offered. Can you document all of this? I asked, my voice surprisingly steady despite the tremor in my hands. Already done. And I didn't stop there. I looked into Thomas's background, too. The man who projects such stability. His business is struggling, not thriving as they claimed. Their perfect Plano house is mortgaged to the hilt. He has a history, including a domestic violence charge from a previous relationship that was dismissed under murky circumstances. They're running on fumes and hoping Lily is their lottery ticket. He tapped the thick folder. Most importantly, I have documented proof of your parents' knowledge of Brooke's whereabouts for 3 years. Phone records, email timestamps, cross-referenced against their affidavits. They lied under oath to the court. When Aisha, my attorney, reviewed the file, her professional composure cracked. Clara, this is the silver bullet. It fundamentally shifts the narrative from reformed mother seeking child to calculated attempt at financial exploitation of a minor. We have motive, means, and now we have proof of perjury from the grandparents. The judge needs to see this evidence. The remaining weeks leading up to the trial were a blur of preparation. The constant stress was taking its toll on Lily. I knew I couldn't keep the reality of the situation hidden any longer. I sat with her on the edge of her bed, holding her small, worried hands. "Sweetheart, Aunt Brooke wants you to live with her and Uncle Thomas, and I want you to continue living with me. The judge has to listen to everyone and make a decision about what is best for you." "But I want to stay with you, Nana," she whispered, her eyes filling with tears. "Why does a judge get to choose my mom? I already chose you." "I know, darling," I said, pulling her close. "And I chose you too. We're going to tell the judge that. I will do everything humanly possible to make sure we stay together." "Will I have to talk to the judge?" "Maybe," I answered honestly. "But if you do, I will be right there with you. And you just have to tell the truth. Your truth is our strength, Lily." "I'm scared," she whispered. "Me too, my love. Me too. But being scared is okay. We'll be scared together, and we will get through this, just like we have gotten through everything else." I compiled all of Frank's shocking evidence, the probate records, the search history, the proof of my parents' lies, into a single, sealed folder. This folder, I knew, was the weapon that would protect our Hart family. It was the truth that would expose the decade-long deception and the cold, transactional nature of the blood ties that sought to divide us. The courtroom awaited the spectacle, but I was ready for the war. The Dallas County Courthouse was an imposing structure of cold limestone and polished marble, its sheer formality instantly intimidating. I wore a new navy blue suit, professional, competent, and a little like armor. Lily was safely with Mrs. Santiago for the day, sheltered from the tense atmosphere I was about to walk into. Brooke and Thomas were already seated at the petitioner's table, looking immaculately put together. Brooke wore a conservative floral dress that screamed caring mother, and Thomas was in a tailored suit that projected effortless success. My parents, Richard and Carol, sat directly behind them, Carol clutching her purse nervously, Richard's jaw set in that stubborn, familiar mask of disapproval. Judge Harlem, a woman in her early 60s with silver hair and a sharp, no-nonsense demeanor, called the court to order. She stated the court's primary concern was the best interests of the minor child, Lily Morgan, and she expected complete honesty. Brooke testified first. She delivered a compelling performance of youthful mistakes, hard-won sobriety, and maternal longing. She described her marriage to Thomas as loving and stable, their home as spacious and child-friendly, and their finances as more than adequate to provide Lily with the advantages Clara could never offer. She cried at the appropriate moments, dabbing her eyes as she described the regret of missing years of Lily's life. "I made a terrible mistake when I was young and addicted," she sniffled, leaning into the microphone. "But I have worked so hard to become someone worthy of being Lily's mother. I want to give her the life she deserves, with a mother and father who can provide everything she needs." Thomas followed, equally polished. He spoke of the 4-bedroom house, the excellent school district they had specifically chosen with Lily in mind, and his financial ability to ensure she would never want for anything. College funds already established, international family vacations planned. We can offer Lily stability, a traditional family environment, and opportunities that simply are not possible in her current situation, he said with confident condescension. While we respect what Clara has done, We believe Lily belongs with her mother in our home. My parents were next, reinforcing the toxic narrative Brooke had constructed. Carol spoke of her joy at Brooke's recovery and her belief that Lily would finally benefit from a relationship with her real mother. She claimed I had been resistant to family gatherings and had deliberately kept Lily separate from them. "Clara has always been stubborn," Carol said with a sigh, implying she had endured years of my irrationality. Once she decided Lily was hers, she shut out the rest of the family. We tried to be involved, but she made it so difficult. Richard's testimony was brief, but equally damaging, characterizing Brooke as reformed and deserving of a second chance, while painting me as controlling and unwilling to acknowledge Lily's biological needs. "Blood is blood," he stated, his voice echoing in the chamber. "A child belongs with her real mother when that is possible. Clara has done her duty, but it's time for Lily to be with Brooke." Their words hit me like repeated blows. Every false statement, every twisted half-truth from the people who should have supported me, fueled the silent, simmering rage in my chest. I focused on Aisha, who gave me a silent, reassuring nod. Brooke's attorney, a man named Mr. Davidson, then began his cross-examination of me, aggressive and tailored to portray me as barely managing. "Is it not true, Ms. Morgan, that you work 2 jobs just to make ends meet?" "I work as a school nurse full-time, and I do telehealth consultations some evenings after Lily is asleep to build her college fund." I corrected, emphasizing the word fund. "And you live in a 2-bedroom apartment rather than a house with a dedicated yard?" "Yes, in a neighborhood Lily knows well, close to her school and friends, surrounded by a strong support network." "Have you maintained any serious, long-term romantic relationships since becoming Lily's guardian?" "My primary focus for the last decade has been providing stability for Lily, not dating," I replied, staring directly into the judge's eyes, not the attorney's. The questioning continued, attempting to frame my loving, stable environment as inadequate compared to the material wealth Brooke offered. The implication was clear. Love and consistency were worthless compared to square footage and a 6-figure income. But when it was Aisha's turn, the energy in the courtroom shifted dramatically. We moved from material advantage to human truth. Lily's current and former teachers testified about her academic progress, social development, and the strong, secure attachment she had to me, her Nana. They described a happy, well-adjusted child who spoke of me with love and absolute trust. In my 20 years of teaching, Lily's current teacher stated firmly, "I have rarely seen a parent as involved and attentive as Clara. Lily is thriving under her care. These are the hallmarks of a child who feels secure and unconditionally loved." Dr. Reyes, the child psychologist, then provided the professional testimony about the psychological damage a removal would inflict. "Lily identifies Clara as her mother in every meaningful sense of the word," Dr. Reyes explained. "Forcing a change in her primary caregiver at this stage of development could result in significant attachment issues, anxiety, and academic regression. The bond between them is profound and should not be disrupted without compelling, non-financial reason." Finally, it was my turn to testify. I spoke from the heart about the 10 years of motherhood, every fever, every nightmare, every scraped knee, and every triumph. "I have loved Lily as my own from the moment she came into my life," I concluded, my voice steady despite the emotion. "Not because she is my biological child, but because she is my child in every way that matters. I have been there every single day of her life. I can offer her the material things Brooke and Thomas claim they can, but I can offer her the security of knowing she is loved unconditionally by the parent who chose to be there. Then came the moment we had prepared for. Aisha presented the sealed folder of evidence to the judge. The courtroom was about to witness a shocking twist that would dismantle Brooke's carefully constructed facade and reveal the dark, financial motive beneath the maternal longing. Aisha, my attorney, formally requested that the sealed folder be entered into the record. Judge Harlem accepted it, putting on her reading glasses and beginning to review the contents. The courtroom descended into an almost painful silence. As the judge scanned the documents, Frank's detailed report, the probate records, the search history, her expression shifted rapidly from professional neutrality to visible concern. She looked up sharply, her eyes pinning Brooke and Thomas, then sweeping to my parents. A tense minute passed before Judge Harlem addressed the petitioner's table. Counsel, approach the bench. After a brief, intense discussion with the attorneys, the judge turned her attention back to Brooke. Ms. Morgan, are you aware of the contents of this folder? Brooke shook her head, looking confused and slightly pale. No, Your Honor. It contains evidence directly contradicting several key claims in your petition, the judge continued, her voice gaining an edge of steel, including documentation that your husband, Mr. Thomas, has been actively searching for Lily's biological father, Mr. Jason Reynolds, who recently came into a substantial inheritance. A collective gasp ran through the small courtroom gallery. Brooke's face paled further, and she turned a frantic look toward Thomas, whose smug confidence had just evaporated, replaced by a look of panicked, trapped rage. Furthermore, Judge Harlem continued, her gaze now fixed on my parents, Richard and Carol Parker. There is documentation here that Mr. and Mrs. Parker have been in regular contact with you for approximately 3 years, directly contradicting their sworn testimony that they were unaware of your whereabouts until recently. My father shifted uncomfortably. My mother stared at her hands. The judge wasn't finished. Finally, there are social media posts and private messages suggesting financial motives for this custody petition, rather than the concern for Lily's well-being that has been presented to this court. The judge looked directly at Richard and Carol. Mr. and Mrs. Parker, did you knowingly provide false testimony to this court regarding your knowledge of your daughter Brooke's whereabouts and your alleged attempts to bond with your granddaughter? Richard cleared his throat nervously. We were trying to protect her privacy during her recovery, Your Honor. That is not what I ask, sir. Did you knowingly make false statements under oath? We may have misremembered some details, Carol offered weakly. Perjury is a serious offense, the judge reminded them sternly. She then turned her attention back to Brooke. Ms. Morgan, were you aware that your husband was searching for Lily's biological father for potential financial gain? Brooke's composure finally shattered. Thomas handled the legal aspects. He said it would strengthen our case to have the biological father's information. And did he mention the inheritance? The judge pressed. Brooke hesitated, unable to meet the judge's gaze. Not specifically. Thomas leaned forward, his polished veneer finally cracking. Your Honor, if I may explain. Mr. Thomas, I suggest you confer with your attorney before speaking further, Judge Harlem advised coldly. The evidence suggests potential legal issues for you beyond the scope of this custody hearing. The courtroom atmosphere had transformed completely. What began as Brooke's carefully orchestrated performance of redemption had imploded, exposing a decade-long lie driven by pure, calculated greed. The judge called a brief recess to review the newly introduced evidence, leaving us all to sit in the tense, exposed silence. When court resumed, Judge Harlem's expression was grave, her tone definitive. Having reviewed the entirety of the evidence and testimony presented today, I find several disturbing elements in the petitioner's case, she began. What appears on the surface to be a mother seeking to reunite with her child is, upon closer examination, motivated at least in part by financial considerations related to the biological father's recent inheritance. She addressed Brooke directly. Ms. Morgan, while you may have genuine feelings for your daughter, the timing and circumstances of your petition, combined with the clear misrepresentation of facts, raise significant concerns about your motivations and judgment. Then, her expression softened as she turned to me. Ms. Clara Morgan, the evidence clearly shows you have provided a loving, stable home for Lily throughout her life. The testimony of educational professionals and the documentation of your consistent, unwavering care are compelling evidence of your commitment to her well-being. With a final, decisive look at her notes, Judge Harlem delivered her ruling. The verdict that ended my 10-year struggle and secured our future. It is the finding of this court that the best interests of the minor child, Lily Morgan, are served by maintaining her current living situation with her aunt and legal guardian, Clara Morgan, Judge Harlem announced, her voice ringing with finality. The tension in my chest, a vice grip that had held me for months, instantly dissolved. Relief, so intense it made my head swim, flooded my body. Aisha squeezed my hand in silent congratulation. We had won. Lily was safe. The petition for change of custody is denied, the judge concluded. She continued, outlining the new boundaries. Ms. Morgan will be granted limited, supervised visitation, to be arranged through family services, with the potential for expanded visitation in the future if deemed appropriate. Then a stern look toward my parents. Mr. and Mrs. Parker, the court takes note of your apparent willingness to provide misleading testimony in this case. You are admonished that such behavior undermines the legal process designed to protect children like your granddaughter. As the formal proceedings ended, I sat quietly processing the outcome. The nightmare was over. We had fought against blood, against money, and against a decade of deceit, and we had triumphed because of the power of unconditional, consistent love. Brooke approached me as I gathered my papers, her eyes red-rimmed from crying. Thomas was already gone, having been advised to leave the court premises quickly by his attorney to avoid further legal scrutiny over his financial dealings. I never wanted to hurt her, Clara, Brooke NOI softly, her composure completely gone. Or you. It just got complicated. It didn't have to be complicated, Brooke, I replied, emotionally drained but firm. You could have just been honest from the beginning about wanting to know her. You could have just been the aunt. She nodded, looking down, defeated. I know. Thomas thought. It doesn't matter what he thought. I should have known better. I simply nodded again, unable to offer her absolution in that moment. I took a deep breath, stood up, and walked out of the courtroom, away from the shadows and toward the sunlight. I had a promise to keep. The moment I picked up Lily from Mrs. Santiago's house was one I will never forget. She ran to me, scanning my face with frantic anxiety for a clue about the outcome. Nana, what did the judge say? Do I still get to live with you? I knelt down to her level, taking her face in my hands, meeting her eyes fully. Yes, sweetheart. The judge said you stay with me. We are still a family, just like always. Her entire body sagged with relief. She threw her arms around my neck, clinging to me with desperate strength. You promised. You cross your heart promised, and you kept it. I will always keep my promises to you, Lily, I said, holding her tightly, allowing myself to finally feel the full weight of the emotional burden that had been lifted. Always. That evening we celebrated with pizza and ice cream, a simple feast that felt like the most luxurious, extravagant meal imaginable. As Lily chattered excitedly about the art project she had worked on during the day, I marveled at her resilience and her sheer capacity for joy, despite the uncertainty she had been living with. The aftermath of the court case required careful navigation of new, firm boundaries with my family of origin. I knew I couldn't allow their toxic influence back into Lily's stable life without consequences. I arranged to meet my parents, Richard and Carol, at a neutral cafe, just a few days after the verdict. Lily was not present. I needed to address their betrayal head-on. How could you lie in court? I asked them, not bothering with pleasantries. How could you support taking Lily away from the only home she has ever known, knowing full well the damage it would do? We thought we were doing the right thing, Richard said defensively, still clinging to his moral high ground. Brooke is her mother. And I am her mother too, I said firmly, my voice unwavering. In every way that counts. You chose Brooke and money over both of us, and you lied under oath to do it. I cannot trust you around Lily. Now that is ridiculous, Clara. We are her grandparents. Carol protested, tearful and indignant. Grandparents who were willing to traumatize her to achieve a financial end. I countered. If you want to be part of Lily's life going forward, there will be new rules. Supervised visits only. No undermining my parenting. No private conversations about Brooke or the custody battle. And absolutely no more lies. They balked at the restrictions, but I remained firm. The judge's ruling had given me the confidence to set the boundaries that should have been in place years ago. The Hart family was protected, sealed by a judicial ruling and a mother's unbreakable promise. The weeks following the court case were dedicated to healing and establishing a new normal. Lily continued her sessions with Dr. Reyes, the child psychologist, who was instrumental in helping her process the complicated feelings surrounding the verdict and the betrayal by her grandparents. Sometimes I feel like I have two moms, but also no mom, Lily confided during one session, revealing the depth of her confusion. Brooke is my birth mom, but she didn't want me. You want me. But Grandma says you're not my real mom. Family can be complicated, Lily, Dr. Reyes acknowledged gently. But what matters most is who loves you, who takes care of you every day, and who makes you feel safe. Who is that person? That's Nana, Lily said without hesitation. She's my real mom because she chose me and stayed with me. Those words became a healing mantra for both of us. My parents, Richard and Carol, eventually agreed to the new, strictly supervised arrangement, though with poor grace. Their visits were stiff, short, and non-negotiable. They saw Lily once a month in a public space, never alone, never for more than an hour. They learned quickly that my resolve was absolute. They had forfeited the privilege of unconditional access when they chose greed over loyalty. The supervised visitation with Brooke began cautiously. Thomas stopped attending after the first few sessions. His interest in Lily diminished entirely once the financial motive was exposed and the door to the inheritance was slammed shut. Brooke, however, continued to show up. Without Thomas's pressure, her focus shifted from reclaiming to relating. She gradually established a genuine, albeit distant, relationship with Lily, one that was more appropriate to their actual connection. She became something of an aunt figure, interested, sometimes helpful, but never attempting to usurp my role as Lily's primary parent. With the custody issue resolved and the shadow lifted, I was able to focus on professional advancement again. I applied for and received a promotion to Health Services Coordinator for the Dallas School District. This position offered significantly better pay and continued to guarantee the essential family-friendly hours I needed. The additional income allowed us to move to a slightly larger, charming apartment in a new development in Plano, one with a small communal yard where Lily could finally plant the garden she had always wanted. It wasn't Thomas's 4-bedroom house, but it was ours, bought and paid for with the honesty of my hard work and the stability of our chosen life. Several months after the court case, Brooke asked to meet me privately over coffee at the same Galleria Cafe where we had reconnected a year earlier. I agreed, curious about what she might want. She finally offered the apology I hadn't realized I was waiting for. "I was wrong, Clara," she said simply, her eyes meeting mine without the guarded nervousness she usually displayed. "Not just about the custody case, but about everything. You are a better mother to Lily than I could ever have been, even if I had been healthy from the beginning. You too have something special, something real. I thought biology trumped everything, but watching you together these past months has shown me what true parenting looks like." "Thank you for saying that, Brooke," I replied, surprised at how much her acknowledgement meant to me. It wasn't the relief of winning, but the satisfaction of being recognized for the decade of sacrifice. "I want you to know I've ended things with Thomas," she continued. "After everything came out in court about his motives, I couldn't trust him anymore. I'm focusing on my sobriety and my career, and on building a healthy relationship with Lily as her birth mother, not trying to replace you." This shift in Brooke's perspective allowed us to gradually establish a more cooperative relationship for Lily's benefit. We would never be the close sisters we were in childhood, but we found a workable peace as two women who genuinely cared about the same child in different, appropriate ways. Lily continued to thrive as she grew. Her natural resilience helped her integrate the complicated reality of her family situation into a coherent, manageable narrative. She developed an interest in psychology, perhaps influenced by her own therapy experience, and began talking about maybe becoming a counselor someday to help other kids with confusing families. On the evening of Lily's 11th birthday, after a small party with her closest friends in our new apartment, she presented me with a homemade card that instantly brought tears to my eyes. Inside, written in her neat, looping script, she had penned the final, definitive statement of our journey. "To my mom who chose me every single day for 11 years. Biology makes relatives, but love makes families. Thank you for being my real mom." Looking back on our journey, from the rainy night a 3-month-old baby appeared on my doorstep to the confident 11-year-old standing before me, I realized that the unexpected detour my life had taken had led me exactly where I was meant to be. I hadn't planned to become a mother at 24, certainly not to my sister's abandoned child, but that unplanned beginning had given me the greatest gift of my life. The definition of family I had grown up with, based on blood and obligation, had been replaced by a richer, deeper truth. Family was not just who you were born to, but who you chose to love, and who chose to love you back, day after day, through every challenge and joy imaginable. Lily was my reward, the living proof that a heart family is the strongest family of all. Thanks for listening my story.